Hi everyone, welcome to Studio Jake. I have a little bit different setup today. That's because I have a very classy guest, so I'm going to class up the joint a little bit. And before we get started though, I wanted to remind you to like this video, share it with all your friends, and subscribe to Studio Jake. But when you subscribe, also ring that little bell because YouTube is doing this weird thing where they're curating your subscription so you won't see it in chronological order. So even if I do a great interview like I'm about to do now, you might not get alerted, so definitely ring that little bell. That way you get notifications right away. And with that, I am very excited to announce I have a very special guest. I've been following her career since the early 2000s. She served in the White House as press secretary under President George Bush. She's written 2 best-selling books. She's the host of the Daily Briefing on Fox News and co-host of The 5 on Fox News, and also has a weekly podcast, which I recommend to everyone. She is, of course, Dana Perino. Dana, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on Studio Jake.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm sorry it took me a little while to figure out the technology, but you were very patient with me, and I appreciate that.
Yes, of course. A guest doesn't go by where there's some sort of issue, so there was nothing out of the ordinary. And I invited Dana on because I really wanted to talk to her about this upcoming Oscars that we have going on and about the Best Picture nominees. And I've got the list right in front of me. And now Dana is in New York City. She's in Washington, D.C. She's on the East Coast. And I'm just curious, like, what her favorite films are of 2018. So Dana, would you tell everyone, last year some good movies came out, some not so good movies came out, and I'm curious, what were some that you really enjoyed?
You know, Jake, I have to preface all of this by saying one of my biggest weaknesses my entire life has been sort of Hollywood knowledge. Okay, maybe a little better with music. Hollywood knowledge is tough for me sometimes, and especially because of my job. And the great thing about technology is I often watch movies when I'm traveling. So I have to tell you, thinking about last year's Oscar winners, I can't even remember what was on the list. Give me a hint. Give me a hint. What was on it?
Well, all right. So this year they announced that Black Panther was nominated. Black Klansman.
Last year, but you said last year.
Oh no, I meant just last year. What are some of your favorite films from last year, not the Oscar nominees from last year?
Well, okay. So here is something that I can actually talk about with some authority. I didn't see Black Panther. I don't know if I've actually seen any of them yet. I did, though, see one of the documentaries that was nominated for Best Picture in a documentary, however they say that. And I actually know the producer, the videographer, and the star of the documentary, Free Solo. And I loved it so much. I got to go to the premiere here in New York, and I knew what to expect a little bit because I had gotten to know them earlier in the year. I don't know if you know the movie. It's like have you seen it, Jake?
I have not. I did see the trailer. It looked really fascinating. I heard that it's about a guy who he's free climbing, and I remember reading somewhere that they had trouble miking him because of the climbs he had to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting film because he is a free solo climber. He's a very interesting character, kind of a little bit of a loner is the wrong word. I would say that he's very happy being on his own. Okay, and you go through a little bit of his upbringing. Had kind of a uncomfortable childhood, but he finally finds himself in climbing. But he likes to go like free solo, which solo means that you don't have any ropes.
Oh, wow.
Which is very, obviously very difficult, and you and I would probably never do that. But they're in the climbing world, it's a thing. And one of the interesting things about the documentary is that there was this ethical dilemma throughout the whole thing about should they even try to film his next feat, which was to climb El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. But mind you, without ropes. I think it's like 3,000 feet up or something like that.
Wow.
And so if he falls, he's dead. And the cameramen were thinking, like, should we even do this? Because will we possibly be a distraction?
Right.
And what if he makes eye contact with us somewhere along the route, because they were staged in certain places along the way. And so I know that he makes it because I had met him just a couple of months before.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie is so riveting. My husband, who also had met him, was squirming in his chair the entire time because he's a little bit afraid of heights. And I nudged him at one point. I said, Peter, you know he lives. But it's just so much filled with anticipation. But the great thing about this story is not only do you have the ethical dilemma about filming the documentary, there's a sweet little subplot and love story that goes along with it that you kind of usually don't get in a documentary. And it was one of those movies where there's a triumph, a personal triumph, a human triumph at the end. And so on The Five, which is one of the shows I do on Fox News, we do New Year's Eve predictions. And I have about a 97% record of getting my predictions right. And this year, I said, I think that Free Solo will be nominated and will win Best Documentary at the Oscars. And obviously, I don't know if that's going to happen because you have the RGB documentary, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And obviously, she's quite popular and has a big following. I just think that Free Solo was a superior film, and I hope that they get it.
I did see RGB, and I wouldn't say it was riveting. You don't really know a whole lot about the Supreme Court, so it was interesting to watch a documentary about Justice Ginsburg. I know my colleague at the Daily Wire, Michael Knowles, he watched it, and Andrew Klavan interviewed him about it, and he didn't like it at all. I thought about half of it was good, and then it was like when they got to the Bush years, all of a sudden it takes a partisan turn. Like I felt like all the way up to that point, they were pretty fair and even-handed. Yeah. Obviously celebrating her because it's a documentary about her, which is perfectly fine, But then I felt like right around 2000-ish, it took a left turn, I'll say.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't seen Free Solo, and I have to admit I'm a little surprised. Well, I shouldn't say I'm a little surprised, but I guess that RGB would be nominated, especially didn't CNN produce it?
Yes, and I have to say, I was going to mention, Jake, that the way it's so interesting to me, the way that the industry is evolving. To me, that could have just been a CNN special. I don't see why it's getting a documentary nod at the Oscars. I don't understand how Hollywood works, but to me, Free Solo is obviously so much more of an actual film and a documentary, and there's drama and suspense and a love story and a human triumph at the end, and it's so exciting. And I know not all documentaries are like that. You probably don't even want to talk about documentaries, but anyway, so I think Free Solo is going. I think it should get it. I don't know if they will, but the interesting thing about that is after its initial release, because of its popularity, it is now going to be seen at IMAX theaters starting this weekend.
Oh, nice! I definitely.
I think you should go see it on the big screen. Take your wife, go see it.
You have sold me. I'm definitely going to go see it. And yeah, I will. And it's really interesting to me because last year a documentary about O.J. Simpson won Best Documentary. And it's really amazing how these great feats, like Free Solo, to me, I can't remember some of the other nominations, but I remember thinking, haven't we done the O.J. Simpson documentary before? I mean, I saw one recently that was about the unreleased version of his book, If I Did It, because I remember the Goldman family sued him and got the rights to that book, but they actually, I can't remember but one network did an interview with him, and they did where they were asking him questions about the unedited version of his book, and they just did a documentary on that, and I'm kind of like, I'm sure this documentary is good. O.J. Simpson is always a fascinating person, but it seems like feats like this, where this guy is Free Solo climbing El Capitan, it's kind of like, that seems like something that it's an amazingly great feat. I would think that that would be more inclined to win, but probably it'll be with as crazy as the Oscars and the Academy have been. I wouldn't be surprised if RGB won. And I have to admit, I'm curious how CNN is going to report on that. Cause like, are they going to do like an hour-long brag fest about, hey, our documentary about Ruth Bader Ginsburg won an Oscar?
Course they are. Of course they are. But hey, look, I should say, I think it's great that CNN does documentaries, and I think that Fox could do some more. And actually, on Fox Nation, you can see some documentaries and investigations and stuff that are being put together by that entity. So I'm not against news organizations or anyone else putting together documentaries or films. I mean, there's obviously an insatiable appetite right now in America for all sorts of content. And it's interesting, I'm sure you've covered this before, but it's almost hard to ask someone to sit for 2.5 hours to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Like a 45-minute or an hour-long episode of Jack Ryan on Netflix is something that you can actually fit more easily into your day.
And this is something that I clash with a lot of actually other conservative people who are into culture. Is they complain about the Marvel films like Black Panther, and they're like, well, they're episodic. Like the MCU is so episodic. You have to watch this movie. You have to watch Iron Man and Captain America: The First Avenger to know about before you watch Joss Whedon's The Avengers. And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, but you do that on television all the time. So. Right. And although some of them are really good standalone, Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming, I guess you do have to know about Iron Man to see Spider-Man Homecoming, but it's still a standalone. Doctor Strange for sure. But anyway.
I thought, you know, I usually watch films when I'm on longer flights. I watched one of the worst movies ever made that I know the art community liked. Did you see Patterson?
I did not see Patterson.
I can't even tell you how bad this movie was, but people really liked it. And the guy who was in it is a famous actor. Maybe he was in Hunger Games or something. And he spent 9 months in Paterson, New Jersey, learning how to drive a bus. And then it's a story of him on this bus. And I kept thinking, this movie's got to get better. And I watched the whole thing and it ended. And I was like, I cannot believe I just wasted all that time. But at least it's something to talk about on your podcast.
I'm looking it up right now. Patterson film. That's so crazy. When I Google Patterson, it doesn't even come up.
I think it only has one T.
Oh, it only has one T. Okay, because like I was looking it up, and what was coming up was the Patterson Bigfoot film.
No, it's in.
Okay, Adam Driver's in it. Okay.
Adam Driver.
Oh yeah, I fell asleep during the trailer for that film.
Okay, so at least I don't feel too old. Like honestly, that was not a very good movie.
Well,
but it got 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh my gosh! You know, I was having this argument with someone about the Rotten Tomatoes scores, and I'm kind of like, you know, because if you look at the Last Jedi Rotten Tomatoes scores, it's something like 80%. But if you look at the audience rating, it's like 40%. It might be a little higher than that. But I was kind of, and I was saying, you know, just because a Rotten Tomatoes score is high, that doesn't mean it's a good film. Right. You know, Rotten Tomatoes is off the mark a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And speaking of high Rotten Tomatoes scores, we've got the Best Picture nominees for this year have been announced. We've got, I'm going to read off the list, and I'm just going to read it. And if you have seen it, just say yes. If you haven't seen it, just say no. I'm really curious to see. Okay. So we got Black Panther.
No.
Black Klansman.
No.
The Favorite.
No.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Definitely not. Not interested. But my husband wants to see
it. Green Book.
No, but I want to see it.
Roma.
I have it downloaded.
A Star is Born.
Not yet.
All right, and last but not least, Vice.
No. See,
and this is
but you know, if we did if we did your show 6 months from now, I will have seen probably 5 of those.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Now everyone kind of waits for them to come out on Redbox or Netflix or Hulu to watch these films, because the only one that I wanted to see in theaters was Black Panther, which I did. I went opening night, and I wanted to see Black Klansman because it's such a fascinating, true story. But then I was reading reviews where Spike, or in the trailer, there's a scene where David Duke, who's played by Topher Grace, is like, America first, and they're like, America first, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this movie didn't take place in 2018,
Right.
you know. So I just lost interest after that. And of course, The Favorite, I was going again. It's one of those where I fell asleep during the trailers. Same with Roma. The only, I guess, popular films besides Black Panther are Bohemian Rhapsody and Star is Born. But even a Star is Born lost out to Venom. Which, did you see Venom?
No. I heard it
I was going to say, that doesn't seem like your type of film. Just being honest. It's like,
I guess I don't know what I tend to watch. I do, well, for example, I always I keep in my phone, in my notes section, a list of movies I want to see. Like Greg Gutfeld from The Five, he'll tell me movies that he thinks I'll like. I would say 50% of the time he's right. Other 50%, I'm like, what is Greg thinking? You know, he's got a unique brain. And he really knows pop culture, so he watches a lot of stuff. But I keep a list, and then I'll watch the movies eventually. So, for example, I didn't watch Hidden Figures until this past summer when I was on a plane. I loved it so much, and
it's a good film.
I made my husband watch it on his next flight because I said, you're going to love it, I promise. So I do get to them eventually.
And yeah, and I think that's how a lot of Americans are. I think it used to be the Oscars would be, everyone went to see these films.
Yeah.
But now I feel like the Oscars is more, oh, maybe I'll get around to watching that when it's in Redbox. You know, and you know, this year they don't have a host. Would you host the Oscars? I'm a little curious because it seems like they're hiring.
No, I mean, you know, so I worked for the White House. I work in television now, but I never get starstruck by Hollywood, ever. Actually, let me take it back. One time in O'Reilly's green room, I got to meet Rob Lowe. Because remember, he played Kennedy in Killing Kennedy, O'Reilly's book.
That was a good film.
And Rob Lowe came to do an interview with O'Reilly, and I was on after him, so I just happened to be in the green room before, and we had a talk about The West Wing. And I really liked The West Wing as a show, and he asked me how I felt about the show and how realistic it was to what it was really like to work there. And I said that I thought they did a very good job. I said, of course, obviously it's condensed and nobody's making decisions in the hallway with music playing. I said, but generally I thought that they did a really good job. But I was able to tell him something that really bugged me that they got wrong. And he said, what was it? So I told him that every time President Bartlett came back to the West Wing in a car and he got out to go back into the White House, they would open up the door and he would walk into the White House and they would close the door behind him. But that actually never happens. They leave the door open until he's safely inside because of Reagan's assassination attempt. Remember, they had to open the door to get him back in rather than just being able to shove him back in.
Right.
And Rob Lowe had never heard that before, so I had a moment with Rob Lowe. I actually just read his book. The one is called Stories I Only Tell Myself, my friends.
Oh, right. Yeah, I saw that it had been released.
If you haven't read it, I listened to it on my commute. I highly recommend it. It's so interesting about how he grew up. When they moved to California, it just so happens that the kids he's hanging out with are Charlie Sheen and Sean Penn, and it's really, really a good book. Terrific.
Oh, I'll have to give it a try. It's like you know, and this is another thing with Hollywood. Everyone keeps saying Hollywood is running out of ideas, but it's like I would love to see a movie about how Rob Lowe made it. You know, that would be, you know, he could play himself, you know, at the end at least.
Well, and apparently he's doing something in Vegas now where he's like a one-man show where he performs this book, like the best stories from the book. So in case you and your wife want to pop over to Las Vegas.
I'll definitely have to check that out. And back to kind of the Oscars and whatnot. Rob Lowe would actually make a good host for the Oscars. They should give him a call.
Yeah.
Although he took that picture with, I believe it was Press Secretary Sanders, so I don't know if that's allowed anymore.
Actually, he talks about one of the times that he made a huge mistake. It was at the Oscars, and
really,
it was yeah. You'll be very interested in this story. It's something about he was asked to do a performance, and it was like a musical number, and somebody very famous was going to write the musical score, and it was very silly. And apparently it went so badly that he's never lived it down.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know if they would have him back, but I think he would be good. I don't know. The Oscars for me, I have to say I don't watch it. And something I wish that they would do from an industry perspective, and I know this would probably frustrate a lot of the movie theaters themselves, but like I don't know anybody who goes to the movies anymore. As you said, a lot of us wait. But I would definitely pay $20, even $25, to be able to watch a new release on opening night from the comfort of my home.
That would be really cool.
Because you're going to spend $50 when you go to the movie theater, right?
Yes.
2 sodas, whatever. So I just don't understand why they're leaving all of that money on the table. I haven't been to a movie theater in years.
Yeah, the last time I went my wife and I went recently. I'm a huge nerd, as you can probably tell from the Trunks statue over there. But my wife and I went and saw Dragon Ball Super Broly, and we went to an ArcLight theater, which the tickets are like $100 each. So I got myself a giant Coke and say again?
Wait, why were they $100 each? I don't know.
Oh, I'm being facetious. They were like $18 each, I think. And but you're right. It's like between the two of us, and then you got to pay for parking because we live in LA, and then I bought her a coffee and me a Coke. We didn't get any snacks, but you're right. It ended up. Oh, we had dinner right before at just a sub place, and so yeah, we ended up spending, like you said, like $50 just to go see a movie. And we don't in LA. There are no dollar theaters. Or if there are ones, it's one you don't want to go to because there's a crazy person who says God is talking to him on his radio.
Do you think that maybe the industry will consider something like that?
I think so, especially with streaming and becoming so popular. I mean, Netflix and Hulu and HBO, and now we're about to have Disney Plus. My thing is, I don't think, because all these movie companies are trying to create their own. So like Disney has their own, Warner Brothers is going to have their own, Sony is planning one. And so I honestly think when no one's going to buy, $10, $12 a month subscriptions to these things. So I honestly think we'll see Disney and HBO still be around, and then everything will eventually just consolidate onto Netflix or Hulu or some future version of that. But I think that's what's going to happen. Disney Plus, they're going to be like, if you're a premium member, you can see the premiere of Frozen 5 on, on this day. You just have to pay us $30, and then you'll get all these other movies free when you do that. So I think that model is going to become less popular.
And in fact, this week, Netflix left the Technology Association that it was a part of and joined the Movie Association in Washington, D.C., which I think is a real indication of like, this is not a technology platform anymore. This is a content movie production company.
Right. And, you saw a little bit of pettiness because normally when the Oscar nominees are announced, all the movie theaters replay all the nominees. And Roma, which was a Netflix original. Now, like I said, I fell asleep halfway through the trailer to Roma, and I totally had no interest in it. But I saw it was kind of petty because I can't remember which ones, but there were two movie houses that were saying, we're not going to play Roma. It was on Netflix, so why would we waste our time and money displaying it when the people can just watch it on Netflix? And I was kind of like, oh, that's a little petty because some people might go see it. I mean, you don't replay the Oscar nominees for cash. You do it because you're trying to, the Oscars are trying to garner some attention. So I have a feeling that will keep happening, but I think that will eventually die out, because to me that came off. I want to say it was Cinemark and another company, and it came off incredibly petty, especially the press release about it. It's just like, okay, we get it. You're mad at Netflix.
Oh, by the way, I did see another movie, Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh, was it good? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I liked it, but actually, I didn't see the last 25 minutes because my flight was coming in for a landing. I had to put my iPad away to get off the plane. And then I got to the hotel, and they said my rental had expired.
Oh.
So I don't know how it ended. So I had to have my friend tell me how it ended. But I thought it was pretty cute. I liked it.
Yeah, I heard it was kind of like, it was very similar to kind of a romantic comedy that,
Definitely.
from the early 2000s, I guess.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It was cute.
I want to see, there was a movie that came out. I'm not a huge J-Lo fan, but I'm a huge Leah Remini fan, and they're in a movie together called Second Act, and I really want to see that film. A few people said it's not really original, but it looks good.
Is that why they're doing that diet together?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I do know that they're really good friends. I mean,
yeah,
Leah is who made sure J-Lo got to Tom Cruise's wedding, so with Katie Holmes.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's 10 days, no carbs, no sugar.
Interesting. I just eat everything, and then I hope that it all works out. That's the airy diet.
Good way to be.
All right, so
we're and Honda have a similar philosophy.
That's hilarious, and we're winding down to the end of our interview, so it's time for our curveball question, and I'm curious, Dana, if they were to make a biopic about you, who would be your first choice to play you?
Honda whispered Jennifer Aniston in my ear.
I could see that, actually.
But I have always been told that I sometimes remind them of Reese Witherspoon in the character she played in Election.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that. Okay, yeah.
She's like fun and cute, and she's class president, and like never gets in trouble. That would be good. I mean, as long as they looked 5 pounds thinner, that would be great.
I know. I always say that if people were to play me in a movie, they need to get Brad Pitt. Obviously the resemblance is uncanny.
Before you let me go, let me see if I can get Jasper to come up. So
yeah.
See him. Jasper, he's sleeping. Jasper, come.
Yeah.
Look, what's this? Come up. Come on. Come on. Come on, Jasper, up. Come on. Up. Okay, now Jasper.
It's America's dog.
Do you see him?
Hey, Jasper.
Can you see him? He loves to watch a video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You want to watch a video?
Rachel and I have a shipper key, and the other day I brought him up to show everyone on my episode, and he was not interested. What breed is Jasper? I'm curious.
He is a Hungarian Vizsla, and if they were to make a movie about America's dog, they would have Jasper play himself. Oh,
absolutely.
And then I'm going to show you one other thing.
Okay.
I just showed you Jasper. I've never done. This is my first video interview I've ever done here. Okay, look. But can you see that?
Yes.
So that was Jasper as a puppy, and that was 43's painting of him. George W. Bush. Yeah, so you can see right there where it says 43.
Right.
Yeah, so 43 painted Jasper.
That is amazing.
It's the only thing I care about in the entire apartment.
Everyone was, whenever I heard that President Bush was going to be an artist, I have to admit, I was like, I'm a little hesitant about this, but then his artwork started coming out, and he's a really good artist, actually. I mean,
yeah, much to the art community's chagrin, he's actually good. But he didn't know that he was good, and actually, it's a good lesson for all of us. Like, I've read this article today about unleashing your creativity, because I don't think I'm that creative. But he said that he had read this Churchill essay and that he said, just try it. And it turns out that he actually is a natural.
Yeah, it's true. It's amazing. I was looking. I flipped through his. They released a book with all of his artwork in it. It's like a portfolio, and I was like, man, he is a really good artist.
Special is that he did the Portraits of Courage book, and that
right.
He's done portraits of wounded warriors, and then he presents the portrait to the wounded warrior, and it's a very special moment. So I think I think he feels like it's something that he's going to continue to do. Of course, he's had a kind of a hard year, right? He lost his mother and his father within 8 months of each other. But he's a grandfather, and he's a happy, happy grandfather. That's for sure.
And
one thing, he's glad not to be in politics anymore.
and one thing no one can deny about.
We haven't even talked about that, Jake.
What haven't we talked about?
Vice. It's total bull. Can you say bullshit on your show?
Yeah, well, you just did. It's fine.
I mean, come on. And then of course they're going to give him like, oh, he plays Dick Cheney, he's going to get the best actor. Forget it. I will never ever pay money at all ever to see that movie.
Well, and it's like in Steve Carell, who's a fine actor, I guess.
Yeah.
Donald Rumsfeld. It's kind of clear to me what they were trying to say, about former Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld. Say what you want to about President Bush's administration. I always feel like Hollywood. There was like one good movie about President Bush. I believe it was called 9/11: Path to Terror, something like that. It's like the only book that portrayed anyone from the Bush administration with any sort of nuance. It was actually pretty good. I want to say, was it Path to 9/11, Path to Power? I can't remember, but it was a really good film. And I refuse to see Oliver Stone's film W.
Me neither.
And same with Vice. Like, I feel like one of the reasons I didn't see South Side of You was I don't really like to watch movies about presidents when they're alive. I prefer to, like, JFK. I watched Killing Kennedy, which was a fantastic film. I watched Killing Reagan, which was another fantastic film. And to me, I feel like when they make movies about presidents when they're alive, they're doubling down on a myth, whether it's pro or negative. And I feel like after they pass, then it's the time to kind of build up a myth about them. Does that make sense?
I think that's very wise, and I've never heard it put that way, but I'm going to use that in the future, but I will credit you with having told me.
Oh, thank you. Well, good. And I'm actually glad, because I wasn't sure if I should ask you about, I actually was thinking, should I ask her about Vice? Sure. Are you portrayed in Vice at all? I'm curious.
I don't think so. No one's ever told me that I was. I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Which is a shame, because you were press secretary for close to 2 years, I believe. And
yeah, but not during the war effort.
That's true.
Well, I mean, that's not true. I was press secretary during the war, obviously, but not at the beginning. And I think that is really a lot of it takes place at the beginning. But, one of the things for me is that as press secretary, nobody at Saturday Night Live knew my name. And that was totally fine with me.
Yeah, because it's like, I believe they did one spoof of Tony Snow during that whole thing, and which and then like you said, I don't think I ever saw you be spoofed on SNL ever. And when you were, and of course I was much younger during the Bush administration.
Yeah.
John McCain was actually the first presidential candidate I voted for. So, I was obviously very young, but I was like into Saturday Night Live. It was actually funny during those years. So I believe they actually had some spoof on Democrats, which is really weird that now it's weird when they spoof a Democrat, when before it was kind of at least a little even handed.
Yeah.
But anyway, now, well, here's another curveball question, since we're talking about it. If you were offered like a chance to participate in some sort, because I know sometimes they'll go, when Hollywood makes films, like I believe they're about to do a film about Reagan, with Dennis Quaid playing Reagan. That's actually a really fantastic casting choice. Would you be willing to come and like as long as it was fair-handed, obviously, would you be willing to say, hey, I'd love to advise this film?
Yeah, I would definitely want to do that. I'm very interested. Like the show Veep is so good. I would love to work on that show. It's hilarious, even though real life right now is like better than Veep. But the only thing I really want to do someday, along with my colleague Shannon Bream, I want to present at the Country Music Awards.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yes, just one time. It would be like a dream come true. I think it could happen one day.
Well, Jason Crabb does follow me on Twitter, so I will put that out there. I'll be like, hey, Jason Crabb, just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But actually, she and I would just like to attend one year too. We'll do it. We'll do it one of these years.
And the Country Music Awards too. I watched last year's, and it was fantastic. I mean,
so good.
They always are great
entertainment. But it was pretty much all music and just a little bit of commentary, and then awards, and then the speeches are super short, and there's no politics. It's really good.
And yeah, I think actually their ratings went up during last year because no one was watching like the MTV Awards, no one was watching the Oscars.
Right.
And so CMT, their ratings went up because everyone's just a little curious about what, Brad Paisley and Carrie Underwood, what are they going to duet this year?
They're so good.
All right. Well, before we go, is there where can people find you? I've got your Twitter right here. Is there somewhere else?
Twitter, yep. At Dana Perino on Twitter. But I'm also on Instagram at Dana Perino, and then of course the Daily Briefing Show is I know your father-in-law takes a look at that one. That's at Daily Briefing FNC. So yeah, you can find me there.
All right, and of course, everyone, my book was just released. My fantasy novel, The Seven Rules, All Good Things. It just came out Friday, so be sure to pick your up.
Oh, congratulations!
I'm sorry.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's a fantasy novel. I've actually been working on it for 7 years. Oh yeah, long time. Several drafts. I released a paranormal novel a couple of years ago in 2016, and that one though didn't take as long to write, but this one I've been writing for 7 years. I actually started writing it right after I met my wife, and so she's been with me through the drafting process, through everything, through my just through crafting the characters and everything. So it just was released this weekend. Definitely pick up a copy and leave me a review on Amazon. The more reviews I get, the better. I'm excited for everyone to read it. And Dana, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to seeing the Dana Perino movie starring Jennifer Aniston.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Thank you.